Man, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast today. It's great to have you. Glad we could connect. Could you tell our audience, people who are watching and listening, a little bit about you and what you do?
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. In a nutshell, I've been in youth ministry for 12 years now. The church that I'm at right now is in Abilene, Texas. I've been a little bit of everywhere in Texas for my youth ministry career. I am in year 6 here. And absolutely love it. It's fantastic. I am married, been married for just as long as I've been in youth ministry, 12 years. We have 2 sons, and we have um, had multiple foster children through our home over the past 2 years or so. I host or co-host a podcast as well for student ministry. It's Student Ministry Conversations podcast, where we do the same thing kind of you do, man. We just talk about topics, have guests come on the show, share their heart, share their voice, and that's kind of our big deal. Everybody has a voice, and we want to hear them all.
Yeah, love it, dude. Yeah, let's see, in about 2 weeks, well, about a week and a half now, we start classes to get certified to be a foster home. So we're pumped about
Cool.
that. That's super awesome. I might get some tips from you later about that kind of stuff. We have home studies and a whole bunch of stuff to do beforehand, but we're
Yeah.
we're we're excited for that. Sweet. All right. Well, today for our episode, we are talking about the importance and methods of how to get students in your ministry to lead. I think having students learn to lead while they're in your ministry and then actually leading is beneficial for multiple reasons. But Brett, this topic was specifically on your mind. So, from your own experience, why do you think it's important for us to develop and even push students a little bit to lead?
Yeah. I would say from a approach of just like bettering the student as a whole. I mean, obviously you want to see your students succeed, and I think leadership is a big part of that. But when you go into biblical standards as well, like casting vision over their lives and like casting this, like, I see this future in you and we just got to get you there. Like seeing and kind of prophesying this like idea or this gift that they have that they might not see over them is like the beginning methods of like, hey, not only do I hear that I have this, maybe I can actually live up to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really, really important. Students learning to lead is important across the board. If we teach them to lead in a church setting, they can transition that into school. They can transition that into sports teams, um, jobs down the road. Hopefully they take that and run with it in college. And so ultimately it's just teaching them and guiding them to be better humans overall.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's taking them, I had lunch with a buddy of mine, and when he reflected back on his own youth ministry experience, he used a word that I'm like, man, that's so on the nose. And it's how youth ministry, church in general, but youth ministry specifically, when you try and cater to students that are coming out of elementary school, their brains are moving to more abstract from concrete. You're trying to entertain them, and it's easy for youth ministry to slide into the default of making students consumers and not creators and leaders. And
Yeah.
to make that push is something that has to flip in their minds. You can try and make students do things and do whatever, and they can learn from that. But to really develop them and get them to see the importance for themselves of owning their faith, of leading others to do that as well, it's a huge jump. But as you just mentioned, it's definitely necessary, especially in today's culture that's increasingly polarized and increasingly difficult to even have normal dialogue. It's super important.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So what are some methods and strategies that you've come across yourself, that you've done, that you've heard or read from others for how to build up student leaders well?
So I am big on personality tests, Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, all of those. And I think that's been one thing that's really, really been something that I've embraced. Like I know what I am. I know how God built me. And one of those things is like I am. If you follow Enneagram, I'm a Type 8.
Okay.
Which Type
Direct
8
and to the
is
point.
like,
Yep.
yeah, shoot first, shoot again, shoot more, and then when everybody's dead, ask questions later.
Yeah.
Um, but it's one of those things like I don't mind pushing people out of their comfort zones. And I think that's the biggest part of student leadership is like a lot of students, they don't mind, they just don't see it in themselves yet. So when you
Hmm.
push them and challenge them to step out and they do it successfully, it's one of those things that really, really can go above and beyond. But you have to know your students. And so doing personality tests with your students is a great way to do it, because it might not be a telltale like sign where like you know all the ins and outs and details, but it gives you a great opportunity to see some of their personality traits, to where it might be, hey, I'm not going to get this introvert to go like preach in front of
Yeah.
the entire group yet.
Right.
Like,
Right.
but I'm going to get them to lead the prayer team, or something to that nature. And so you find what their strengths and weaknesses are and you use those. And then
Hmm.
once they feel confident in your strengths, you're like, all right, now let's move to these weaknesses and let's see if we can make these work a little bit better too.
Yeah.
And so I've had students that are like super outgoing, extroverts that like want to be in front of people, and it's like, that's great, hey, you're going to lead this, like whether it's a game or whether it's an activity, or you're going to get up and do the music in front of 300 kids for vacation Bible school or whatever. And some of those kids just absolutely eat it up. And it's the best thing in the world because they're doing what they love.
Hmm.
And you're putting a biblical twist on it, like a church centered focus where they can serve with the talents that they have. Um, but I think that's the big method and strategy that you have to pay attention to is start with their strengths, but you have to know what their strengths are. And that takes
Yeah.
time and effort right there.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. When I leading up to when I felt called to ministry, one of my longtime leaders was talking to me about how to how to continue growing spiritually, and in my um, wisdom of being 16 and thinking that I knew everything about the Bible, I asked him in my kind of ignorance, like, "Hey, how do I keep growing? I've heard all these stories and know everything. Like, how do I keep growing?" And he said, "The way you keep growing is by taking what you know and pouring it into others and investing in them. And then you'll find that the way you grow is different and much quicker, and it'll humble you." And I really didn't understand that until I started doing that, in a way that I can relate that with my current students now is, well, students that I help out with, since I'm not the youth pastor or a youth worker. I'm just kind of a fill in, being the family ministries guy. I asked them this past Sunday, uh, how many of you have ever taught kids how to do a skill, like how to dance, how to play basketball, how to do whatever? And a lot of them raised their hands. And I'm like, the first time that you taught them, was it weird for you? And a lot of them said, yeah. I'm like, why was it weird? And they're like, well, I had never taught before, and I know how to do this skill naturally so well. It's easy for me. And I got them to see that when you teach someone, especially someone who doesn't know really much about what you're teaching them, you have to go back and remember what it was like to not know anything and how to learn that. And you kind of relearn some things as you're teaching them. And I'm like, that's what I mean by uh, learning and growing from your own teaching and just the process of it, and learning from students or the people that you're teaching. And when they give you feedback, it's like, oh, when I was your age, there's no way I would have thought of that. That's great. And so yeah, it's a humbling experience, but then it takes your incline of growth and shoots it sky high. But in order to really see that, you also have to humble yourself. And that's
Yeah.
also a concept I feel like with leadership, especially with teenagers. It's so hard to like miss that. And it's easy to get it's more easy to get consumers to be a leader of other consumers, instead of getting them to see the impact of owning their faith, growing in it, having it be deep, and then inviting students into that as well, which is discipleship. And that's something more than just standing on a stage and leading a game, you know?
Sure. Yeah. And I would say that, I mean, there's so many different things that you can push students to lead in. I mean, lead by example. They can lead with their talents, lead with their skills. They can lead as a teacher. They can lead. I mean, there's so many, lead as a role model, like
Mm-hmm.
so many different things that they can do. And that can happen in and outside of the church. And that's really what you kind of want to push them for. And we're kind of in the season now to where we are really seeing that take off.
Mm-hmm.
This summer we had a killer group of student leaders go and counsel at the high school leaders go and counsel at the junior high church camp, and they absolutely killed it. Like they did such a great job at the high school camp that they were all just campers at. One of them had an opportunity to lead one of the kids there to Jesus, which was super super cool. But it's speaking life into those moments to where you're prepping them for the lack of a better example, you're prepping them for game time. Like when it's time to
Right.
roll, they're ready to
Mm-hmm.
hit the ground running.
Yeah.
And now I have a handful of students that I can pretty much ask anything of them of like, hey, I heard that there's this kid struggling in high school and like, I want you to go talk to him. And they're like, okay, done. Like, I mean, and it's no hesitation, no nothing. And it's really, really cool to see. And while they just see it as like they're helping out the youth and like they're helping the student and everything like that, ultimately it's giving them great opportunities for growth and it like development as a person as well. And they're not going to be afraid to do that in the future because they already have experience doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And as far as like outside the church as well, that's something that you bring up that's also a very important part of being a holistic leader is that's something that we drive home with students all the time, whether it's hanging on to that experience when you come down from the mountain from coming to camp, or taking a D now weekend or just a lesson or whatever and trying to go live it out and apply it. And that takes a whole nother step as well as a leader. In
Yeah.
some ways it's almost easier, and you have to try and get students to realize like it's not effort driven, it's just having character and being consistent in that wherever you are. So
Yeah.
that could be, you know it might seem awkward or weird to the group of friends that you're at lunch, but if you just like pause for a minute when you sit down at lunch and like bow your head quietly for like 3 or 4 seconds, like pray for your meal just silently, and then just re-engage. Things like that will make them ask questions like, what are you doing? Or I think things like that especially are good, because it's not like, hey, everyone shut up, I'm gonna pray. Like, it's probably
Yeah.
not a great example. And so doing things like that sparks questions, or um yeah, it's just getting them to appreciate the holistic sense of like, when you lead, it's not just like herding cats, which is a lot of times what youth ministry is. It's actually just growing in your character and seeing the consistency of your integrity and leading out in that. And then
Yeah.
that's just how to live, right? So
Yeah. Well, and that last thing I'll say on it is like you can have a blanket challenge to all of your students to step up and be leaders. But you can have specific goals for specific leaders as well. One of
yeah.
the things that we challenge our high school with is like be the high schooler that you wish you had in junior high.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just an opportunity for our entire high school group to step up. Some of them
Yeah.
do, some of them don't, but like the challenge is still there.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, Brett, this has been fun.
Yeah.
Tell us where people can listen to your podcast and catch up with you and your content and what you're doing in ministry.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'm at Wiley United Methodist Church, in Abilene, Texas, or Wiley Methodist Church, whatever you want to call us. We, like I said, been here for just about 6 years. You can find me on Facebook, facebook.com/Hey Brent Aiken. And love to connect with you on there. I would say connect with me on Instagram or other social media platforms, but I'm getting old and I just do Facebook now. Um, And so other than
Okay,
that, you can
boomer.
find,
Yeah.
yeah, right. You can find our podcast on all the major platforms, Spotify, everything. Website, studentministryconversations.org. We have blog posts, have video and audio to all of our episodes, including show notes and all that stuff. And then social media is at Talk Student Men. And so would love to connect with you guys, would love to we're going to have you on the show pretty quick, which we're
Yeah.
excited about. And yeah, just exciting times.
Awesome. Thanks, bro. Yeah, I'll make sure to drop that info in the show notes, people to connect with you. Thanks again, man. I'll be praying for you and your ministry, your vocational ministry, your podcast ministry, and just encouraging youth workers for kingdom work. Thanks again, bro. Thanks again for joining us today on Youth Ministry Maverick. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this podcast wherever you are listening to it or watching it. And feel free to check out our website, youthministrymaverick.com. On the website, you can hear all of our past episodes, check out a comprehensive list of the bios of all of our guests that we've had. You can see some articles that I've published. You can see some amazing organizations to partner with. Check out the store and buy some merch. And hit us up on our social media pages. If you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, not just a rating, but a review, take a screenshot of it and send it to me on social media or email before you hit submit. And as a token of gratitude, I will send you a personal thank you card with some merchandise that you can't get on the website. It helps us to be seen more, so we would appreciate your great reviews of our podcasts. That's all for now. So until next time, adios.